Shalum, Shalum, and welcome. Welcome to this channel. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I'm compelled to present before an awakening set-apart nation. To those drawn by the Almighty Father Yahuah, to his word Yahusha, that comes in the name of Yahusha, as written in John 6:44. To you who seek to do the will of the Almighty Creator, I consider you my brother, my sister, my family. This is Seed to Harvest, a series of messages that parallels conception to birth and beyond from a natural and practical perspective as it parallels to a spiritual perspective, hopefully contributing tidbits of wisdom so that we do not take for granted the least among us, and that we pay attention to the broad spectrum from those that are least to those that are greatest among us. Yahusha or Yahusha. In this segment, and I consider Yahusha the set-apart chosen children of Yahuah, consisting of the 12 tribes, as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter, and a great multitude, made one by Yahusha. With that said, let's get into this segment. Feed me. When a child is born, its instincts, its reactions are to be fed with the milk of the mother, and ultimately with soft foods to solid foods and beyond. Feed me. It's a daily exercise, my brothers and sisters. And I will submit the case that if we do not take this for granted, how Yahuah provides for us food and water, if we pay close attention and not take it for granted and realize the need for such, and then look at being born again, set apart by the Almighty Father's word who come to us in Yahusha's name, and have that same hunger and desire to eat of the bread of life, which is Yahusha, to drink of the water of the word from the Almighty Father, which comes in Yahusha's name. If we realize these parallels, my brothers and sisters, it will contribute towards wisdom and what is expected and what must be done. There's no doubt among many that end times are here. There's no doubt as to the things to expect as it relates to what has been prophesied, what has been written. But the key lies, my brothers and sisters, with us discerning what we are to be doing now and in the days ahead. Life and survival will be top of mind, if not already, as forced movement comes, my brothers and sisters. These are things that will take priority. I submit to you, water, food, fresh air, and a place of safety. You see, when the scriptures talk about wars and rumors of wars, it's time for us to begin to look at what does that resemble? What are we to do for such a time as emerging before our very eyes? We tend to recognize the need to respond to a baby when it's feeding time. How many of us recognize as newborn babes in this set-apart walk? How many of us are sensitive to the feeding times? How many of us recognize the need to respond to the words, feed me, or the actions that request feeding? Yahusha or Yahusha. When we respond to a baby's needs, oftentimes it's hearing the cry or seeing how they are irritable. How many of us look at one another and look among Yahusha as newborn babes in this set apartness, seek to know this life that they have come to be birthed into, this set apart awakening. How many of us see their cries, see their irritability as they try to discover how to be fed, how to be nourished, what to eat, what to drink? From a spiritual perspective, do we give attention? Are we not aware that the Almighty Father allows us to have this experience with babies so that we have an example of how to govern ourselves from a spiritual perspective? Let us be vigilant, mindful, and respond to one another, my brothers and sisters. Each other with the word that comes from the Almighty Father as we read and study and we learn and we share, as we witness his anointed teachers and taught ones. Feed me. I have stated that we can gain wisdom by seeing the similarities a newborn babe faces as it relates to being born again spiritually. What wisdom have we taken in? Who have skipped the rest of this video because they say, I don't need to know nothing about babies. I'm not interested in that. Not realizing that he that is least among us will prove to be greatest among us at their appointed time. Let us not take for granted all the things that the Almighty Father put before us to help us to learn. My brothers and sisters, make no mistake, there will be individuals looking to take the lead or identify leaders who will respond to the call of feed me. How many of us now want to know what to do, when to do it, with whom, what resources to take, what resources to leave behind? At what point do the movement begin? Will we wait till the last minute? Will we understand the needs of those that are least among us? I mention often about discipline. It's time to begin asking ourselves, what does discipline of the Almighty Yahuah resemble? Is it a refining process? Is it a perfecting process? Or will we waste time and energy trying to defend our positions, our ego? Or will we understand that discipline requires getting under the blood of the Lamb, repenting, yielding to his spirit, being renewed day by day? Yahusha, oh Yahusha, I submit to you to learn what it takes to be renewed day by day requires us to recognize the feeding. Feed me. Whether those are the words spoken, they will prove to be the actions of those who hunger and thirst for set apartness. One way the Almighty Yahuah disciplined his children was through drought and famine. The fruit of their rebellion, he allowed there to be drought and famine, making them hungry, making them concerned with how they will eat, how they will respond to the words feeding. These conditions included a lack of water and food. Be forewarned, O Yahusha, the need to know where to locate food and water will emerge during displacement, during times of movement. My brothers and sisters, I want to share how famine could lead to people willing to sell themselves for food. By taking the words feed me for granted, we will witness a rise in starvation. How many of us have given thought to all this heat wave, all these heat waves that are moving across the planet? How many of us are giving thought to the length of time these exorbitant temperatures have been prolonged across the world? What will that do, and what is the result as it relates to food production? What do you think is over the horizon, my brothers and sisters? What do you think is about to happen? It's time, my brothers and sisters, to be prepared, to know how to respond in times of starvation. For it could lead to one quickly willing to sell themselves, if not themselves, betray us. The scriptures tell us that there will be those who will betray us in our household, those that will turn us over, for Yahusha's name's sake, or for a morsel of bread even. You see, when it comes to starvation, when it comes to literal feeding, man is willing to do almost anything to save their own earthen vessel. Let me share an example where they were willing to sell themselves for slavery and what they did before they even got to that point. Come with me to Genesis 47th chapter, verses 13 through 16, my brothers and sisters. Genesis 47, 13 through 16 say, now there was no bread in all the land, because the scarcity of food was very severe. And the land of Mizraim and all the land of Canaan became exhausted from the scarcity of food. And Joseph gathered up all the silver that was found in the land of Mizraim and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they brought. And Joseph brought the silver to Pharaoh's house. And when the silver was all spent in the land of Mizraim, in the land of Canaan, and the Mizraites came to Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the silver is gone. And Joseph said, give me your livestock, and I give you bread for your livestock if the silver is gone. There's more. Stay with me, Yahusha. And he goes on to say in the 17th verse, I'm in the 47th chapter of Genesis. And he goes on to say, so they brought their livestock to Joseph. Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses and for the flocks that they owned, and for the herds they owned, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for their livestock that year. And when that year had ended, they came to him next year and said to him, we do not hide from my master that our silver is all spent, and my master also has the livestock we own. There has not been left any more before my master, but our bodies in our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us in our land for bread. Let us in our land be servants of Pharaoh. Give us seed. Let us live and not die. Let the land not lie waste. And Joseph bought the entire land of Mizraim for Pharaoh, because every man of the Mizraites sold his field, because the scarcity of food was severe upon them, and the land came to be Pharaoh's. And as for the people who moved them into the cities, from one end of borders of Mizraim to the other end. You see, my brothers and sisters, the scriptures provide us with many lessons to learn when it comes to why we should pursue the desires of the Almighty Father. You see, out of rebellion, famine, drought, pestilence, and disease will rise. Feed me applies to both natural and spiritual needs, Yahusha. We are very much aware of our natural needs, but how much attention do we give Abba Yahuah for spiritual water and food? Do we just read the scriptures to echo them to one another? Do we seek to discern the life? Case in point, in Ezekiel it talks about the wealth of the enemy being brought before the children of Yahusha. I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, during climate change, famine, and pestilence, silver and gold, diamonds and rubies, the things we know of as wealth, will take a back seat in the midst of famine and pestilence and disease. The wealth that they will bring to Yahusha will be to buy food. For I submit to you, the promised land will prove to become thriving with the richness of food and water. It will be splendid. It will be made beyond our imagination, a desert that is renewed, revitalized. This is why the enemies will bring their wealth to Yahusha. Our priorities, our perception of what is wealth will be in the food and water, my brothers and sisters, in a safe place. Feed me applies to both natural and spiritual. But I say to you, O Yahusha, pray and watch. Pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. I gave an example of how people are willing to sell themselves for natural food. I want to present something that is important regarding spiritual food as well. Don't take these things for granted, Yahusha. Though I present two words, feed me, look at the broad spectrum of what that represents from a natural and spiritual perspective. Come with me, O Yahusha. In the following passage, what do you think this will resemble as people search for the word of the Almighty Yahuah? What do you think it will look like? I submit to you as it's actually begun. Come with me to Amos, 8th chapter, verses 11 through 14. For it reads, See, days are coming, declares Master Yahuah, that I shall send the hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread, nor thirst for water, but the hearing of the words of Yahuah. And they shall wander from sea to sea and from north to east. They shall diligently search, seeking the word of Yahuah, but they shall not find it. You see, some think that it's in just the text. And they will search different books and scrolls and stuff, seeking the word from Yahuah, versus praying to discern the presence of the living Almighty One. It says, in that day, the beautiful maidens and strong young men shall faint from thirst. People are fainting because they don't know what to read, what to study, what to believe, as they uncover information. Some information is true, some not so much. Those swearing by the guilt of Shamaron who say, as your mighty one lives, O Dan, and as the way of Bathsheba lives, and they shall fall and never rise again. You see, the days of hungering for the word of Yahuah. We see people saying they got books from the continent, or books from the UK, or books from Russia, or books from various countries. But I say to you, to discover the word of Yahuah and the words from Yahuah is to recognize that he sent his word in Yahusha's name, and that it is the spirit of Yahuah that comes in Yahusha's name that will feed us that everlasting bread of life, feed us with everlasting water. How many have given thought to these words referring to Yahusha, who is the word of Yahuah, when he talks about a hunger for the word? Could it be a hunger beyond physical food? My brothers and sisters, come with me to 1 John verses 1 through 3. 1 John verses 1 through 3 says, in the beginning, I'm sorry, not 1 John, John, 1st chapter, verses 1 through 3. John, 1st chapter, 1 through 3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was the Almighty One, and the Word was the Almighty One. He was in the beginning with the Almighty One. It says Elohim, but Elohim is plural for mighty ones. There's only one Almighty One, and that is Yahuah. All came to be through him, and without him not even one came to be that came to be. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Now I want to take you over to the 10th chapter, verses 27 through 30. I'm in John. 10, 27 through 30 says, my sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. Hear these words, O Yahusha. Feed on these words, for Yahusha is the bread of life. Seek to discern the importance of the living word of Yahuwah. Consider this passage that I present to you, Hebrews 8th chapter, verse 10 and 11. For it reads, because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Yahusha after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Almighty One, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. His words, O Yahusha, feed me. He feeds us with the words of set apartness, with the words of righteousness, my brothers and sisters, everlasting instructions to grow more and more in maturity with each passing day. It is important to always ask the question as we read, what does it resemble? Being able to see what it resembles helps one discern the life in the matter. Allow me also to present 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. It says, not that we are competent in ourselves to reckon any matter from ourselves, but our competence is from the Almighty One, who also made us competent as servants of a renewed covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. You see, when we lean on just the letter, my brothers and sisters, there's confusion, misunderstanding because of our comprehension skills, the way we were taught. My brothers and sisters, if I'm saying anything that's nudging you closer towards the Almighty Father or encouraging you or motivating you, consider subscribing, share, and like these messages. Pass them on. Will be as you feeding others if my words indeed have any life in them. Just as I presented how men were willing to give themselves over to slavery for natural food, consider the spiritual conditions where many misleading communities, camps, groups, fellowships will include people hungry for the word of the Almighty Yahuwah. So hungry they will give themselves over to that camp, that community, that fellowship. But be informed, O Yahusha, the need to seek to discern the voice of the Spirit of Yahuwah and move cautiously and wisely, know when to come away, when to purge. The need to address the words, feed me, from a spiritual perspective is challenging indeed. I encourage each of us to seek to learn how to vet, examine all things. Avoid being led astray, as mentioned in Matthew 24th chapter regarding end times. Yahusha, my brothers and sisters, I repeat the title of this message, Feed Me, because there is so much to learn, so much to do to prepare ourselves to receive more and more of the everlasting word of the Almighty Father, more and more of the bread of life, the ways of Yahusha. Come, let us visit Philippians 1:9 through 11. I bring it up often, if you've been following me, because it is a daily thing that we must not ignore. Philippians 1:9 through 11 say, in this I pray you, that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment. For you to examine the matters that differ in order to be sincere, not stumbling until the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahusha Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One. And remember these words, O Yahusha, what he is expecting of us. He brings refinement. And whether I use the word refinement or discipline, Let us get to the point where we welcome and receive discipline so that we may rise up renewed, refreshed, strengthened. Revelation 3:19 says, "Many as I love, I reprove and discipline. So be ardent and repent." Strengthen yourselves, my brothers and sisters. The discipline of the Almighty Father is for our benefit, so that we do not consume the things that are unhealthy, whether natural or spiritual. And there's some pain, but let us learn how to navigate beyond the pain. Hebrews 12:11 saying, "Indeed, no discipline seemed pleasant at the time, but grievous. But afterwards it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." Rise up, my brother, my sister. Feed me. Identify who's feeding you. And who are you feeding? What are you feeding? The time is now to realize there will be times of fresh water and food rationings, my brothers and sisters. Naturally, even to some degree spiritually. Spiritual rationing might be not wasting a lot of time on one that is not hungry or thirsty for righteousness, one that does not want to hear. Rationing is going to require discipline. Transitions are coming, my brothers and sisters. Begin those discussions. Have discussions with one another regarding food rationing. There'll be times of plenty and times of less. Let us understand the value in our inward man over these earthen vessels, for they will return back to the earth, as it is written in Ecclesiastes. My brothers and sisters, these times are real. The conditions that are unfolding are real. It is important to identify those who seek to discern the living orders from the Spirit of Yahuah, whose word comes in Yahusha's name. Referencing John 14:26, failure to take heed to these words could result in ignoring the words, "feed me," could result in ignoring what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat. Failure to recognize what discipline is required as we are growing and going into these latter days, in this end of the age. To take it for granted will result in pain and regret. Yahusha, oh Yahusha, our comfort will come in understanding and knowing what must be done, and seeking to discern the living instructions that the Almighty Father gives us. Let us not take these words for granted. Have those discussions. What does it mean? What did you eat today? Spiritually? Physically? What is it doing for you? Are we grateful that we found favor in the Almighty Father to have something to eat or drink? Let us quit taking for granted what He has given us and what He will give us. My sisters and brothers, let us be mindful of these words. Listen very carefully. Matthew 6 chapter, verse 25 through 34. Matthew 6 chapter, 25 through 34 reads, "Because this I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of the heavens, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into the storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Are you not worth more than they? And which of you by worrying is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Shalom, or Solomon, some will say, in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. The Almighty One so clothes the grass of the fields, which exists today, and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace. How much more you, O you of little belief? Do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For all these the nations seek for. And your heavenly Father knows what you need, knows that you need all these. But seek first the reign of the Almighty One and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. When it's talking about evil, it's talking about it brings worry. But when you seek first the Almighty Father, when we seek first the Almighty Father, my brothers and sisters, we discover something different. We discover his living instructions. Yahusha, O Yahusha. When we spend time with one another and we speak on set-apart actions or instructions or things we discover, are we not aware that we're responding to the need? That it's like feeding that brother, that sister, something set apart that strengthens or encourages? It's important to know the life in scriptures. For when we learn the life and discern the life in the scriptures, we find they say so much to us, O Yahusha. Consider 2 Corinthians 4:16. It lets us know that the Almighty Father is aware of the challenges we face. For in this verse, we are to be encouraged in understanding the full dynamics of the results of our feeding. It says in 2 Corinthians 4:16, therefore we do not lose heart, but even if our outward man is perishing, the inward man is being renewed day by day. Day by day we are renewed. Lift your head up and rise, O Yahusha. Discover what that means. Galatians 6:9 even tells us. Galatians 6:9. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not grow weary. Yahusha, O Yahusha. Let us trust and believe. The plan of Yahuah will be successful. Remember Hebrews 11:1. It defines what belief, some call faith, is. And 11:6 let us know without belief, it's impossible to please him. Let us seek the desires of the Almighty Father that we may please him and respond more readily to the words, feed me, naturally and spiritually. Let us not neglect the least among us. I mention it often, for in the times ahead, O Yahusha, we must see the importance of identifying how the Almighty Father will provide, whom he chooses to work with, who he will use. Let us recognize what lies ahead, and let us rise up, my brother. Trust and believe. Though the word feed me may have appeared to be too repetitive to you, it speaks volume. And I pray that you're able to see that. I want to thank you if you listen to this from beginning to end. Stay tuned. There's more to come. Remember to subscribe, to like, to share, my brothers and sisters. Pass these words on, for there's many more to come, whether it be from me or another. The key is to seek the origin of the words, if there are words that draw you closer to the Almighty Father. I thank you, and I pray that you're continually encouraged. I pray that each of us grow to discern the voice of the Almighty Father and pay close attention pay close attention to the examples, the learning models he presented before us in Scripture, the learning models that he presented before us through our seniors, our elders that tell us of times past and the lessons that they learned. Let us learn lessons and let us handle the feeding properly. On that note, I will end by saying, Shalom. That is all. Shalom, my brother, my sister, my family.